Welcome to the History Forward podcast. I'm Rachel Kulik, Curriculum Officer and Sessional Lecturer. Here, you will get inside stories from recent alumni on their educational journeys and what motivated and shaped their career paths. The purpose of this podcast is to raise awareness of the exciting and diverse careers achieved by undergraduate alumni of historical studies programs as told through their own voices, and to help inspire you to think about who you want to become and the skills you can bring forward. Thank you so much for joining in today. Now, let's talk history. Welcome back to the History Forward podcast. My name is Rachel Kulik, and today I'll be speaking with Caitlyn Giles Bonekamp. Caitlyn graduated from UTM in 2020 with a minor in history and a specialist in management. She is now in the Master of Management and Professional Accounting program at UTM and is working at Ernst Young for her co-op terms. Thank you so much, Caitlyn, for joining the podcast today.
It's great to be here.
I've already revealed some of this information to our listeners, but what is your connection to the Department of Historical Studies? Which program did you complete? When did you graduate?
So I graduated in 2020 for the spring graduation, and I did a minor in history. And sort of the way I got into doing the minor in history was I was part of the UTM One Scholars program. And in first year, I took a seminar course, and it was, I believe it was called Curiosity and Control: Voyages to North America. And I thought it was super interesting. It was a very small class size. It was led by Professor Mary Cohen. And I ended up I loved the course so much. And you need that humanities requirement for distribution at UTM. And I thought, okay, well, I'll take History 101 next year. And, then I saw that Mary was teaching like European second year history. And I thought, okay, I'll take that as well. And at the end of first year, I wasn't really sure what to select for my post. And I had sort of slotted in a history minor in there, just sort of as, I guess I'll put a minor. And it changed around a couple times, and I ended up doing specialist in management. And I basically never got rid of that history minor that I had declared in first year. And it was just sort of sitting there on Acorn, and I kept taking history courses, and I thought, well, gee, I should really complete this. It's sitting on Acorn, and I'm enjoying these courses so much. So that's sort of how I ended up taking a history minor. And it's not something that I went into university thinking, oh, I'm going to minor in history. But thinking back, it made a lot of sense, because I always loved history. I always loved, even archaeology, anthropology, history, all that stuff growing up. And so taking it at the university level, I found I really loved it. But I wouldn't have known that unless I took that first year seminar course.
That's fantastic. So distribution requirements attracted you to the minor program, and you continued with it, and then you kept it, even though it was extra work on top of a specialist program, because you don't have to do another program with a specialist, correct?
No, you can just do only the specialist to graduate. But I sort of thought that I wanted something else to differentiate me, and I figured if I'm enjoying it this much, I should definitely get that on my degree. It was something that gave me a break from the business courses I was taking, and something I always looked forward to. I took a lot of third and fourth year level courses as soon as I could, because there was no exams, and I'm not a huge fan of exams, even though I did so many courses that require them, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I prefer doing like papers and written stuff. And so it was great to be able to take like 1 or 2 history courses a year, take one in the summer, and just enjoy doing that.
So you communicated to us how you got into this historical studies, this history program. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a bit about how you ended up coming to study at UTM in the first place, and where you're from, perhaps?
Yeah, so I live very close by. I'm just a local commuter to UTM, and I was sort of attracted to UTM because I always knew that I wanted to go to University of Toronto, just because it was so well ranked. It was just a great university to go to, and It was sort of my dream university, I guess, even when I was younger. But I didn't know about UTM. I didn't know that it existed. And the one thing I really wanted was that campus experience, I suppose. And St. George is amazing, but it maybe doesn't have that small campus atmosphere where, you're just on a campus and it's just you. And then I saw UTM for the first time and I thought, this is amazing. It's University of Toronto and it's got that small campus feel. It was very close by to home. I could commute. So that was kind of what led me to UTM. And when I applied, I was very lucky that I got some scholarships as well. So that made the decision to go to UTM just really clear, really obvious. And I was just so pleased with it. So that's kind of how I ended up at UTM.
I'm so happy to hear that all worked out and that you got to go to your dream university.
Yeah.
I was wondering, can you speak a bit more about your studies here and how your management program and history program fit together? Were there any challenges in doing both of the programs in timing? Was there some overlap?
Yeah, so I sort of tell people this all the time, that history and management business school, my BBA, I don't consider it to be too dissimilar, actually, because what history sort of taught me was communication ability, writing ability, the ability to analyze, synthesize information, provide your opinion, look through a lot of information that you might be seeing, understand how that information sort of plays into what other people are saying about it. And then when you go to the business courses, maybe it's a large data set. Maybe it's doing industry research on a certain area. And so learning how to do scholarly research and all that stuff transferred very easily over to business. And I think it made me a very strong candidate, even when I was applying for my co-op positions. Even when I applied to graduate school, I highlighted that this is what I think the question for the year that I applied was, what will make you a diverse individual? And how will your perspective be different than your classmates? And I said, well, I did this history minor and it really gave me a good foundation in something else that's applicable to the business studies I also did. Yeah, so that's sort of my answer to that.
Can you tell us a bit about your current Master of Management and Professional Accounting program or your work at Ernst Young? I'm not sure if that began yet, and how your studies have influenced that or how they've been useful in that to date.
So I did a Master of Management and Professional Accounting because in undergrad, I was originally I went into undergrad thinking I was going to do a specialist in accounting. And once I got to the end of first year, I just thought, I don't know that I'm ready to commit to that because it was a very linear undergraduate program. And it had so many requirements, and rightfully so, to get you to the CPA designation eventually. But it would have left no space to do anything else. Like I wouldn't have actually had the physical space in my schedule to do something like a history minor. And I had actually gone into academic advising and they said, well, it sounds to me like you were more looking for a generalist business degree, something more like an MBA. And they said, well, we do have this BBA program. And that really stood out to me as, okay, I can still do this other topic. I'm still able to do that. And so then when I got to, and I knew in first year that MMPA existed, that I was not like throwing away the possibility of doing my CPA. And I actually sort of had that goal even from first year that I thought, well, that would be a great master's degree to complement. And that way I still have that breadth of knowledge. I can still take other subjects and, not miss out on it. I feel like undergrad is a time when you're really able to take so many different things. And I didn't want to miss out on that and not get to take that breadth of subject because I'd taken a degree that was, I guess, very narrow. So then when I got to fourth year and I applied, and I also applied for and got into Master of Information and Master of Museum Studies at U of T. And it was a really difficult decision as to, do I do this MMPA program that I had sort of thought about since first year, but I also, because I loved history so much, I did apply to and really consider doing more of a history spin to it. But I guess I sort of figured at the end of the day when I was deciding, the bulk of what I had done previously, I suppose, was business and management, and I had done well. And I thought if I choose museum studies and Master of Information, that may be actually closing the door to being a CPA. But if I become a CPA, that doesn't necessarily close the door to working in, the museum sector or something in heritage and history down the line. And then I could do more of a financial thing in historical areas if I so desired. And so it really came to be what closes more doors for me, I suppose. And that's why I chose MMPA. But I really did think about doing more of a history thing for my graduate studies as well.
That's a great idea and great consideration in terms of which pathway would lead you to more options, which ones would close fewer doors. Congratulations on getting into those programs. That's such an amazing accomplishment.
Oh, thank you.
And I really appreciate hearing how your path began into the master's program. I was wondering if you could also tell us a bit about how you applied for and began your co-op work, and if that's another direction in which you had to choose a particular pathway.
Well, when I first went into MMPA, I knew there was co-op terms, and that was something that drew me toward that as well, that it would give me some work experience, and hopefully like financial district in Toronto was sort of what I was aiming for. And when I first went in, I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll work at a bank. And I wasn't actually all that knowledgeable about like the big four accounting firms or anything like that. I sort of knew they existed, but I didn't really know what it meant to be a big four or that it was international. Like I knew in the back of my mind. And then the program I was in really started to push us toward, like they were showing us, these are all the different accounting firms. They did a lot of recruitment sessions with us on Zoom, which was all very new for them too, because they were having to move everything to Zoom now instead of in-person recruitment that they had done for all these years. And I went to all these recruiting sessions, and EY in particular, I really loved their recruitment team. I felt sort of a connection with them. I thought, I think I could see myself working here. And so from the beginning, they were who I really wanted to get in with for my co-op. And when I was applying, to be honest, I just thought, I'm just going to be myself, right? Like I'm going to be very genuine. And you had to record a video, which was a little intimidating, but at the end of the day, it's fine because they gave us sort of some of the questions in advance, and you would just answer those questions on video. And it would be quite general things like, why would you like to work here? And that type of thing. And I just expressed how much I really liked the recruiting sessions. I sort of wrote out a bit of a script, I suppose, of what I planned to say. I didn't read off of it, but I had thought through like, what do I want to say? And then I got the call that, okay, yeah, you're on to the interview stage. And I jumped up and down in my house and got very excited. And then I did the interviews, which was a really great experience. And the interviews went really well, and I was offered a position. And there's definitely ways to prepare, but if you do accounting, you sort of will see there are very certain ways to prepare for those type of interviews. You have a good idea, like what will they ask you? There's question banks where as long as you come up with a certain amount of stories to tell, to emphasize the different types of questions and just be adaptable during the interview, you'll do very well. And I suppose there's an element of luck to it, I'm sure. But yeah, and then I was very pleased that I got offered a position. So then they had an opening for forensics at Ernst Young for co-ops. And that was something that had interested me a lot because I was also sort of interested in law and in those sort of other areas as well. And at UTM, they have Master of Forensic Accounting. And I'd sort of been exposed to it in that way, where I'd seen that the program existed. And I thought, oh, that's a very interesting area of accounting. And once again, when I applied for that internally, I emphasized that I had done history and that I knew how to look at evidence and primary source documentation. I knew how to form an argument. And I really emphasized that history students learn how to do a lot of what I think I might end up doing in forensics, and that I have great communication ability because of this, as well as all of these other technical skills that are almost a given, right? Like if they look at your business degree, they can tell you've taken all these technical courses, they know that's there. But being able to emphasize that I had done history, and even in the interviews with UI, I talked about, I did the history internship program in fourth year, and I worked at the Oakville Museum, and I did data analysis there. I used Python to look at the camp data. So there was a lot of really great experiences there that my first job, I suppose, besides being a teaching assistant, was being there at the museum through the history department. And that was something I could use in my interviews, something I could always talk about.
So you had that experiential learning opportunity while you were here, part of the history program, that you could then speak about and apply. And that seems to have shaped your direction a bit, and definitely helped your experience in the interview process. And congrats on the role. I was wondering, you spoke a bit about Mary Cowan earlier. Was there a particular professor or course at UTM that shaped the direction in which you went? You mentioned you had that interest in the forensics program. It could be a professor either in the management program or in history program. Or is there someone who's inspired you to continue in a particular direction now, in terms of steps afterwards?
I would definitely say that Mary, she was such an amazing professor. And I tried to take every single course that she offered, starting from first year. I took that first year UTM 1 Scholars. When they offered another UTM 1 Scholar course, I took that as well. That was the history of ecology in North America. And I took fourth year medieval life cycles with her. Anything she offered. I took Jesuit missionaries in 1700s New France and European history. Every time I would see there was a course that she offered, I thought, well, that's going to be a really great course. And I'm really looking forward to taking that. And I would just slot myself in. And I was sort of lucky that management students got early access on Acorn to things. We had priority because of our program. And so usually we were potentially earlier than some of the other students. So that was also how I managed to fit history into the schedule. Was sometimes I would be able to select the courses quite early, right, before other people, because just my time on Acorn was a little earlier. And so, Mary was amazing. And I definitely feel like when I think back on my undergraduate education, what was great about her in the historical studies department was, even from first year, she teaches history 101, or at least when I went through, she did. And she really starts with like, these are the basics. This is how you do it. And they would help you by giving you some of the primary and secondary source information, and then say, okay, now just synthesize from that. And then I would take a second year level, and okay, it steps up a little bit. And then I would start taking third and fourth year levels. And it really prepared me to take those upper year history courses, and prepared me really well, that I knew what to expect. I knew how to write these papers because I was very well trained in first and second year there. So I definitely think she had like such a big impact on my undergraduate career that she would be the professor that I would definitely give a great shout out to. And if anyone has the opportunity to take a course with her, I would definitely recommend it.
Thanks so much for that, and for the recommendation. The final question I have then is, do you have any other advice that you would like to share with students considering taking a historical studies course or taking a program?
I would say, I know when I first went into undergrad that I was unsure about taking humanities courses, especially at U of T. I just imagined that it would be very difficult, potentially very subjective, difficult to get the higher grades. But I don't think that that's true. I think that especially if you work hard, you talk to either like the TA and the professor about what your papers are, you just really throw yourself into it, you can do very, very, very well. And if you compare it to maybe a math or a more technical course where you think, well, I can get 100 in that, but maybe you won't, right? Like if you get the question completely wrong, you won't be getting that. Whereas with history, you know that, or really any humanities course, at least if you put in a very solid effort, the grades are not as difficult to get as you think they might be. And I think maybe there's a lot of students who are worried about taking courses like that for just that reason alone. Or that they think that high school level history, where maybe it's a little more about memorizing facts or that type of thing, they think that that's what you're doing at the university level, which it's really not at all what you end up doing at the university level. It's much more about reading, synthesizing, forming an argument. And if you like writing papers and you enjoy research, it's an amazing thing to add to your schedule, whether it's a minor, a major, a specialist, or just one course.
It's really great to hear your perspective on that, coming from a specialist in a management program. So thank you for that. Yeah. It's been fantastic to hear about your experiences today. And I would like to thank you so much for joining the podcast, Caitlyn. Wish you all the best with your master program and your co-op.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed this episode and you know someone who would also enjoy this episode, please pass it on to them or share it with your friends. Like it, click the follow button, or enter your email on the blog to receive podcast updates. Thank you so much for joining us today. I look forward to having you tune in next time to History Forward.